Chris, how you doing, brother? Good to see you.
Doing well, Daniel.
Great to see you. Apologies first to you and to the listeners because Lauren is not with us. So it's happening more and more recently. And the reason being, we're in Kent at the moment, and she and Sophia and Samuel they're trying out a Sudbury Valley style school here in East Kent. Um, that's 3 days a week, so they get to run off and go and do all kind of forest school and things like that here in the UK, and they're making new friends. So it's great. It's a positive experience, but I know the listeners, they tune in to listen to Lauren rather than myself. So I think your first question would be, how tall are you?
Very. So in metric, it's exactly 2 meters, but in freedom units, something like 6'7" or something. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, it's the reason I ask is because you and I we met at the Hotel Princess in can you pronounce the town in which it is?
Barely. So it's in Plochingen.
Right.
Has the great German sound. So it's near Stuttgart. So that's the larger town where Mercedes and Bosch and all these car brands come from. That's where we
Hmm.
met. Yeah, and you the first thing everybody noticed about me, man, you're tall.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it was a great place. And I urge all of the plebs to keep an eye on, any of the events that are coming up. Obviously, the a lot of the content is in German, but we were there. My wife was just there actually with Sophia. They had a meetup for Les Femmes Orange, the Women of Bitcoin, the Orange Women, and run by Rachel, who was recently on Peter's show. And Sophia was on a panel with Yanis, so that was in English. The panel that I did with Canute was also in English, so there is English speaking there. But if if you go, everybody there speaks English, and you just hang in the lobby, having some drinks, having some beers, having some cocktails, amazing cocktails. Shout out to the cocktail guy. I'm blanking on his name. Please, can you big him up?
That is the Bitcoin ambassador on Twitter, L Bitcoin ambassador. He does fantastic cocktails. Yeah, I mean that's the regular experience in Germany. I think if you try to even if you wanted to learn German, everybody, oh, let me in my broken English respond to you. Like it's difficult, I think.
Yeah, but it was a great event, and Mark is doing a great job over there. So right, so that set the scene. That's where we met. That's how I'd already been exposed to Cedar,
All
what you're
right.
doing. Yes, and a big shout out to Ben Weeks and his son Isaac at Robotechy. I think they rep your brand in the UK.
Exactly, yeah. They are the distributor because ever since Brexit, it is hell to ship B2C directly to a customer from Europe. Like I can ship to Malaysia, I can do all these things, but the British government requires me to have like a tax registration and file my taxes there, and it's best to have Bitcoin only support in like on the island, and because I mean it's easy to find like a distributor for products, but I like find it important, especially with like a product where like privacy and the customer that we cater to, like they entrust us with their private information that they order the product, and I need to make sure that the distributor that retails the product is also a Bitcoiner that understands that that information needs to be deleted, anonymized as soon as possible, as soon as legally allowed. And it was not that easy to find a truly Bitcoin only online store, for me at least. First, there was a lot of people that asked me, hey, can I sell your product? And there was like a knife store or something, and there were like crypto stores that did like other stuffs. And we're working with Ben and his son.
Yeah, that's awesome. And they cruise around all of the meetups, the local ones. They get to as many as they can, and they're always doing a great job. They do the 3D printing as well, and they bring along little products and fun little projects and the Seedor and whatever else. So, well, first of all, I guess what is Seedor? That's what people are going to be thinking. Like, what is this? What is this product? What are we talking about?
So it is a steel wallet that helps you back up your private key or your recovery seed. So the only information that you're ever gonna need to keep secure to truly own Bitcoin is the recovery seed from which all the private keys are derived. Those 12 or 24 words, you can never ever store those in the cloud. Don't store them on a computer connected to the internet. Write them down on a piece of paper. Pieces of paper are not that long lasting. They can get wet or burn or can be easily destroyed. And we are not the first to come up with the idea to emboss that information on stainless steel. And there were different products out there. I'm from trade. I'm a mechanical engineer, a material scientist, and I virtually bought like 40 different versions of a steel wallet. And in engineering school, I was taught that you have to look at everything as if it were broken, and then you find the solution how to make it better. And I could always find something that annoyed me. I started out with like a 3D printed jig and used letter punches from the hardware store. And that 3D printed jig always breaks. You can't even emboss like 12 words, let alone 24. Or there was products that like mixed different materials and alloys. And I wanted to have it nice and small, and I didn't want to deal with like adhesives and stuff like that. And then I designed like an entire toolkit that you can order, and we supply you with a disk, with the tools. Everything is included, and you have peace of mind. And then you can, also easily in the future, if you decide to migrate your funds, cheaply just get new disks and reuse the entire the components. Let's put a picture in here, like somewhere, so people know what we're talking about. But yeah, Seedor is the name derives from seed, trezor. Trezor is the German word for safe. Doesn't make any sense in English, but it was funnily enough, it was my Reddit handle from 2009, and then I got the brand. I registered the brand. My business partner and I, we registered last like 2 years ago in August, and it was still free, surprisingly.
Wow, well done. All right, so what annoyed you about the plates? Because obviously a lot of people have the steel plates. They're very popular. A lot of the companies out there, you know, they put their own little spin on it, and you can buy them directly. And that's another thing. Please, plebs, buy directly from support your Bitcoin only companies, or buy directly from somebody. I mean, the way I got mine, I bought it directly from the hotel in Bitcoin in Germany, from Mark. So that's another thing to make sure people are aware of. But why not the
Why no
plates?
plates?
Yep.
So first off, to anybody out there, if you have a seed backup on a plate, you're doing great. You're doing better than 99% of people. Like don't sweat it. I started out like with even like aluminum plates. You can just scribe it in with a nail. You go to the hardware store, you can get brass, which is like super corrosion resistant. Or you get like a stainless steel plate from the hardware store. Like that's all fantastic, and I encourage you to do so. What I don't like about the idea of plates, there's like two types where you either emboss just like a dot pattern, and from which you like derive the binary codes, and then you have to go into a list and have to translate that into words. That to me is a sort of chiffre, like a encryption that if I think about an heir that maybe needs to restore those funds from me when I don't know, get hit by the bus, they may not know what to do with that because it's not human readable. You have to go online. And like the worst scenario that I can think of is somebody takes a picture, posts it on Reddit and asks, dude, what is this? Money gone. The other style where you emboss like full length, of just the first four letters of seed words on a plate. If you make a mistake on the 23rd word, you either got to live with it or you start over. So you have to make really sure, and believe me when I say I've embossed like thousands of discs, and still sometimes I make a mistake. I turn like an E or a 3 or something upside down, even though like our letter punches, they have like markings, you know how to orient them correctly. Humans make mistakes. That's why we have pencils with rubbers on the end, and with like a setup as ours, we have like individual washers where on each disk is not just the full-length word, but also the position. You are sure that if you make a mistake, you just replace a disk, or if you also want to destroy your backup in the future, because even if you've transferred those funds, those private keys still have a lot of information. There would be a loss of privacy. Somebody got that the backup even without the Bitcoin on there, and a plate is not that easily destroyed. Like, you have to, if you want to destroy it on purpose, you have to take out the anger grinder or something. With a setup like ours, where we have 12 or 24 words on disks in a capsule, you can just take those individual disks and throw them in various bodies of water, and it's destroyed. So yeah, I think, like, usually in the context of like how to create the backup, how to use the backup, and then how to get rid of the backup, and I came up with the Seedor, and I think, yeah, humbly, it is the best of all the products. But
Yeah, I think it's great, and I'll tell you about my user experience in a minute. But you've hit on a few important things here that I think we should probably make sure the plebs are fully aware of. And the still plates, yes, most of them you only put in the first 4 letters of that particular word that's in your seed. A lot of people might not understand why that is okay, and when they get the hardware, the piece of steel, and they start stamping, and they hit a mental block. It's like, well, I've got a 7-letter word here. Why is there no room? And they get confused. Can you explain why it's in, it's all you need, the first 4 letters?
it's all you need, the first 4 letters, if you know what kind of mnemonic scheme you are using. So the most widely used mnemonic scheme is BIP39. So we started with like BIP32, like Peter Will wrote that. Before that, like I think it was Bitcoin Core or version 09, you had like individual private keys for each address, and there was no way to derive other private keys from one seed. And then we got to BIP32, and there's like, I think the first seed words that were used were an Electrum wallet. There were 1,600, I think, words from a list from Wikipedia about poetry, like Thomas Wöcklin chose those. And he didn't really think through like all these different backup possibilities. And then it was, I think, 2013, the 2 guys from Trezor, Pavel and Marek, and the guy from Bread Wallet came up with the BIP39 seed words. And the unique and great thing about those is that you have like a list of 2,048 words, and it's widely distributed. Like, I don't see a future where those words are ever lost on the internet. And none of the first 3 letters are the same on each word. Like, there's seed words between 3 and 8 letters, and it's enough to write down the first 3 or 4, depending how long your seed word is, and there should be no overlap. That is, if people want to read up about this, there's the Damarau-Levenstein distance between seed words. So there's a string replacement, I think at least 2 string replacements between each of these seed words. And we have 2,048 English seed words plus the word Satoshi. And that is enough to then derive like a lot of security for your private key. And yeah, when the steel backups came out, people, of course, wanted to make them tiny and like also cost saving. They just thought, okay, 4 letters are enough to recover everything because there's no overlap. And if I put those seed words in like a bit box or something, I have one here. It will tell you the rest of the seed word, and the information then can be recovered. However, we still have legacy and Electrum seed words, and we have BIP39 seed words that use different derivation paths. For instance, if you use like an LND server, the seed words are derived, or the private key is derived differently than in a hardware wallet. Theoretically, if you know what you have, it's easily to recover. But if you have like a not technically savvy heir that does not know exactly what that is, you might run into trouble. And so I have a personal anecdote. A friend of ours mentioned that he once gave his son his steel backup to recover, and he didn't give him any hints. And he said, "This is something that you might have to do when I'm gone." And even though his dad is like the most famous German translator of books, and he talks a lot about Bitcoin for a long time, his son was not, or he was stuck recovering those seed words because he only had the first 4 letters, and one of the seed words was goddess, and he only wrote down GODD. And the kit that he used, the D and the O were looking very similar, and his son typed in good. And the checksum failed, and there's no wallet, and then he was confused, and he didn't think of looking in the list himself. And that is such an easily avoidable mistake. If you can like just take 2 more minutes, write down the entire length of the seed word, then it's clear what kind of mnemonic list it derives from. And then if you have like a idiosyncratic setup like a multisig, or like you have a different derivation path, and at least in our product, and even if on a plate, you can still add like the derivation path that is used. So I always say like add as much information in a backup as possible. Don't try to like make something special. Like you're more likely to trip over your own security architecture if you like make it really, really complex. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a really important point to hammer home about the first 4 letters there, and great anecdotal story, because that's it, right? There's no money there. That wallet does not exist if you've got one wrong word.
I mean, if you know how much money there should be, you would probably try again, and maybe go to the pleb of your like inner circle of trust and get help, and it might not be gone. But make it easy for your heirs, and think about like a time where you might not be around. And yeah, so I always say like put as much information in there, because if you go back in time, like the stone of the Rosetta Stone, like it was I think it was 4 languages on there, and probably some guy said, "Man, that is redundant information. We have like Greek and Egyptian hieroglyphs. Why are you doing this?" And this stone is like partially destroyed, but just because we know it's the same languages on all sides, and we have like knowledge of like ancient Greek, we could translate or figure out how Egyptian hieroglyphs worked. So like there is not a person, or I can't remember ever thinking, oh man, I have too much information in this backup. Like I'm always happy. Like I'm a very bad coder, and I always like when I write something, I don't do notes. Like I always think like, oh yeah, future Chris will remember, and future Chris never remembers. Like, I always trip over, yeah, those things where I don't pay attention. But with digital money that we have now, the money is yeah, needs to be secured.
So in the case of that story with Volker's son, worst case scenario, yes, he could have gone and found a pleb, somebody he truly trusted and had the ability themselves, because there's not that many out there that could do it. But there's something called brute forcing, where they could have found that last word. Do you want to explain what's going on there?
So exactly, if you have a certain number of seed words. Let's say you have a 12-word seed phrase and you have like 3 or 4 missing. Theoretically, it is possible to brute force those, because we know there's a finite list, and we know that the last seed word usually like is a checksum. So we can run, like computers are very good at repetitive tasks. We would then use there's Python tools like BTC recover, where you then just put in the position of the seed words and the seed words that you have, and then tell the program which ones are empty, and that will then just try out many different ones, and then derive the public key and look at an address and see if there are funds, and then continue to do that. It's like a time-intensive process, but it's a simple process for the computer. And if you run it on a decent GPU, you will be able to recover that on your own. And it might sound like scary for people that are not like techie in the sense that they would like Python or whatever, but it's really, really easily set up. You should never, there are services out there that help you brute force your seed, and I don't really like trust. Why? Because if they have access, money gone, maybe, or they give you back half. I'm not sure, but it's possible to recover that. And yeah, there's also I'm aware like the support team at Bitbox, for instance, they would also help you, because I think their most frequent support ticket is somebody forgetting their passphrase. A Bitbox has a PIN and the passphrase, like a 25th word, which is like very important to write down, not just where seed words are non-case sensitive, passphrases are case sensitive. And up to a certain length, you can theoretically brute force it. If you have like an address where you know that there are funds on there, then you can like have a smaller range where you have to look. But coming back to my main point, have a good backup.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, having that trusted pleb that you know, your trusted pleb that you want to make sure is in somehow is contactable by an heir, by the spouse that you're leaving behind or the kids or whatever. Like, in case of trouble, call this number and speak to XYZ pleb, because I know they will have your back and they'll figure something out. They'll put you in touch with the next right people to get to, just to make sure that you can get access to these funds.
Yeah, I mean, just having a will is always like helpful. Like, not just I'm not quite familiar what the English word for this is. In German, we say Patientenverfügung, meaning that if you're like in the hospital, that there's also like a written agreement that that person gets to decide what happens with you. Like, you have to have this, and you have to have like a will where you explain how people get access to the fund. Like, I have a different project called SatsKeeper, where we help you set up there's a questionnaire and all the information that might be helpful for a heir to recover your funds you put in there, and it's like encrypted locally. We don't you don't give us any keys, you don't store any keys in there, just there is information in there, and then it's encrypted. And then we have like, that's entirely free, we have like a paid service where we do like proof of life checks for you, and then we would give the person that you nominated the backup, and he probably should have gotten the password from you before that. And then you have like a secure setup where not only there's your backup that you have, but also like the possibility that you can talk to this person, or we could also help you with all the questions in recovery of those funds. Because I mean, it's a very young product. Bitcoin has been around for 15 years. Not many such cases, I would say, yet, but in the near-term future, there will be a ton of people that grew up in a world where Bitcoin already existed. And yeah.
So SatsKeeper, I think you're doing that with Joe, right?
I'm doing this, yeah. So Joe, the CEO of Bitbox, he does the coding, he does the smart stuff. I'm very good at critiquing and saying I want it to look like this and I want to do this, and I'm
So that's
doing those parts about that.
that's a service that is now live.
That service is, so it's a public beta. You can check it out, satskeeper.com. There's like a freemium tier where you just encrypt that file locally. It only runs if you're offline. And again, we don't touch any keys. You don't give us any keys. It's just like, my backup is located there, and you can nominate somebody, and you can already provide that file, or you can write the password. And then we would offer, that is the paid service, we would do those proof of life checks where we then contact you like in a set amount of time. And if you don't respond, we go to the next tier and say like, okay, we figure out if there's like a death certificate in your community in your name. And only then, after like a time has passed, then we would help or provide the encrypted file. And yeah, so that is something we're working on. We're still trying to improve it. So if you give us feedback, send us an email. I always read all the emails at Cedar and SatsKeeper. It's always really nice to have people contact you and give you feedback.
All right, excellent. So yes, Cedar, for those people that haven't played around with one, just to explain it again, it's like a little cylinder. Beautiful. It's beautiful to hold, like stainless steel. Well, you tell me, what is the metal?
So it's a 316L stainless steel. So the L is for low carbon. So it's has an even higher heat resistance, and it's highly corrosion resistant, and it's yeah, manageable to emboss, and the discs as well as the capsule are of this very same alloy, so there's no contact or galvanic corrosion.
Really? So
And
the discs, like the washers, that's all the same metal.
exactly. So
Ah.
we do have components that are manufactured, like the hammer that is manufactured in Asia, but the critical components like the discs and the capsule are manufactured in Germany, because I need to make sure that the steel that I order is also the steel that is used to manufacture, and that it's the same. And you can, yeah, stamp discs, and you can CNC machine the same material into like the capsule. And from every batch that I get, I'll do a spectroscopic analysis where I put like a XRF gun on there and check if the metal components are exactly what I ordered. So they're, yeah, I have a peace of mind that if people like put it outside, dig a hole and just throw it in there, that it's not gonna rust away or any of these things.
Mhm. So when you get the box, yeah, it's beautifully packed. It's a nice unboxing experience as well. You pull out the tools that you need. So you've got the jig there, which holds the and this is another point. Like you actually pack the letters and the numbers into. It's not like I have to then go to a hardware store and find
So
those.
you get the kit, comes in a box. It's might I say a nice gift. It's like a magnetic clasp box, and there's like EVA foam, and then you have like the letter punches, 36 of those, all the letters, all the numbers, and there's also an ampersand. Like if you have like a symbol requirement in the passphrase, you can also store like a passphrase. You get like 30 discs. You get the capsule. You get a hammer. You get like an anvil, like this bottom plate on which you put the discs, and yeah, then is this on video, by the way?
Yeah, we'll release it on YouTube. Yep.
Yes. So we have the anvil, and there you would put the disc on there, and it does not rotate because it features a hexagonal hole and there's a hexagonal pin. And then we have this injection molded part that really fits snugly and tightly, and there you would put in the individual letter punches, and then you can go from position to position and emboss the seed word as well as the number. And because stainless steel is hard, and some letter punches, they have like a larger surface area than others, with this jig you can, instead of having to hit once really hard, if you do it free-handed, you can hit like 5 times easily, softly, and then always strike the same, yeah, letter spot again, and then have a deep embossing on those discs. And yeah, it's how long did it take you to
Yeah.
emboss 12 words? Or
Oh, it was fun. I did it with my son, and I have a business decision to ask you about here. Why did you decide to include the hammer? Most people will have a hammer laying around the house. You could have cut costs with that. Obviously, you've had an in-house discussion or an in-mind discussion.
yes.
Why was the hammer included?
So my business partner is a civil engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer. All of our friends have a technical background, and we asked around, "Do you guys have a hammer?" And they said, "Of course, I have a hammer." And then, "Can we see this hammer?" And it was like a 150-gram hammer that you use to put a nail in the wall to put up a picture frame. And with stainless steel, it's very hard, and you won't have a good time if you use a 150-gram hammer. So we give you like a pound hammer, and yeah, we could have saved costs with a hammer and with shipping, but yeah, people yeah, keep they order it and tell us so the free market decided we need to ship it with a hammer. But yeah, there is a code that you can use, this code no hammer, and then it's shipped without a hammer, and then you can save on shipping and get a little rebate. But yeah, that was purely from discussing it with our friends and doing like a test, and nobody really had like a proper hammer, in my opinion.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, that's just geeky, nerdy stuff on from a mechanical engineer. Love it. And so do the plebs. All the plebs love those kind of tiny little details, as you well know. The it's a beautiful hammer, and it serves two purposes. Not only can it, stamp your seed phrase into the metal, but it's a good weapon for a $5 wrench attack.
So with inflation, we are like at the $10 wrench attack at least. But
Yeah.
yeah, the hammer can be used in different applications as well. But
Absolutely. So it's great as well that you've included the numbers in there, because that would just be a crazy nightmare. if somebody was to receive a bunch of words without the number embossed in there as well. It's
Yes.
just like complete nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, there are seed backups that forego the labor-intensive hammering yourself, and they're like, our product is noisy. I mean, we give you earplugs, but there are products out there where
Oh,
you
you
just
do?
put
You
in
pack
pre.
earplugs in?
Yes, I think about your health. Yes, there's products where you have like pre-embossed single digit, like single tiles that you put on like a rod similar, and the order of the words is only decided by the order of the tiles on this disc and or on the shaft. And if that were to fail, like it's secured with like a small piece of metal at the end, and backups get damaged, and if those tiles fall out, and even if you have all the tiles, there's no supercomputer that can brute force those seed words again. So always make sure if you emboss one seed word on one disk with a position, and then even if you lose a few, you can always use tools to recover it.
Yeah.
But
Please,
don't
plebs,
lose.
if you're doing this, please make sure you put the number before each word. And
Yes.
I even go 01, 02, like as anal as possible.
Yeah, I've get emails from customers that ask me, can I emboss both sides? And theoretically, yes, you can do this. But if you do this, you have to like use an entirely different range. You can't use 01 to 24 again. You have to use like 31 to 54, like because you don't know which side would be the one for this seed phrase. And again, keep it simple.
Yeah.
you can always like there's this quote by Bruce Schneier. Who said like everybody is capable of coming up with like a security architecture that they themselves can't beat. And yeah, follow best practices. Get your hardware signing device, get your bitbox or like seed signer or something, and then like derive those seed words with a really high entropy. That is also important. Like if you have the time, you can roll the dice or like throw coins, and then make a backup in steel. And that's also an order that I recommend. Once you have the backup in steel, wipe your hardware signer and then recover everything from that very backup, because maybe you've made a mistake and you don't know that. And this way you are sure, once you've recovered it and have an address, that then you can transfer the funds to a working backup.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, mate, we've got to find out a little bit more about you and your rabbit hole story and where this all started for you, because there's always a great rabbit hole story sitting inside every pleb. So what were you doing? Obviously, we've touched a little bit. You're a mechanical engineer, you went through university, then you started a career in that field.
Barely. I'm unemployable.
Good.
So it's like it's a decade long. Like I've worked in China. I worked as a material scientist and did like material tests. And so if
Where were you in
the
China?
name come again?
Where were you in China?
Oh, all over the place. So I worked in Guangzhou and I worked in Xiamen. So that's halfway up between Hong Kong and Shanghai. That's like a really nice island. I was in Shanghai. Most of the time I was in Tianjin. That's like basically the harbor of Beijing. The harbor, still like 20 million people live there. And yeah, so
How did you end
there
up? How did you end up out there? Like, so you leave university, and
I
that
still
was a
working for a German company there, and they always like sent people as not technically supervisors, because that would have like legal consequences, but advisors. And then material is delivered, and it says one thing on the piece of paper, and then it's a whole another thing what is actually delivered. And you provide like you build products that are then shipped all over the world, like really large products. If I name them, you would know which company I'm talking about. And then I did like material tests there, and I checked whether the welding was done properly. And yeah, so it happened in many occasions where like a material certificate said one thing, and then you do like the basic Brunel test, and it says an entirely different thing, and then you don't use that steel and reprimand the vendor,
holy shit!
because
Really?
don't trust, verify. Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
and you have to think about like that's not even stainless steel. Like usually you use like basic like 3 or 4 like steel that is at the end of the day in the foundry, like scraped off the floor and put into like plates. Like it's not really like expensive steel, but even there they would not have like the proper percentage of carbon in there, or like all these things I've seen. And again, like that was before Bitcoin, and that's like don't trust, verify, because the guy that gives you the material certificate has an intention to sell you the product, and you can easily verify with like different scientific methods whether those facts are true.
So that, man, like you must have come up against some cultural some very interesting cultural instances out there as a young white guy, three
Who
times
is super
taller,
tall.
three times
Yes.
taller than the average Joe,
Yeah.
turning around and saying, "No, this product is not going to fly with us."
So yeah, I was really young. I'm like without a beard. I look really, really young, and I had like just a little bit of stubble there, but that was enough for them to guess my age 20 years higher than it actually was, because
Wow.
there's not a lot of facial hair in China. And they thought, oh man, this guy, like, he has not been a lot in the sun maybe, but like he has some mustache going, so he must be
How
like at
old
least
were you?
40. I was in my 20s, so
Right.
like right out of university, and they effectively had to like listen to what I represented, the company that like they had a contract with us, and they were manufacturing these products. And I mean, I have to say, like, I was there for over like 1.5 years, and I absolutely loved every minute working there with the people, loved the food. But as you said, there are cultural differences, but so also cultural differences if you go to the United States. Like, I've been to the United States as
Mhm.
well, and they also like have different opinions and views and stuff. They don't give you the benefit. They look exactly like you, but they're like Americans. Like they're also a little bit different. And like in China, you expect them like to have a different understanding of how things or how they do things. Yeah, but yeah, it was really interesting to work there. And yeah, I mean, you can tell people many, many times that you're not supposed to weld from up to down. You have to weld from down to up, because otherwise the welding is shitty and it might crack. And those things, as soon as you turn your back around, they still, for some reason, want to save like 2 cents or whatever, like 5 minutes in time. And yeah, was very eye-opening that, you have to you trust but verify. You have to check everything, and then
Yeah.
peace of mind.
So how long then were you in employment?
Oh, like several years, like, but I was just in China for like 180 days, and then another year. Like, it was like over a course of
Right.
and then I did like process simulation. I did like computational fluid dynamics, and those simulations, like similar to a crash test, where you see like in a car commercial where they have like a digital model of a car. And I did stuff like that, mostly with plastic components, like carbon fiber reinforced plastics and stuff like that. And also worked, did a small part in at the university, at the not at the university, at the institute at the university, for a rocket. So,
Wow.
which was supposed to fly like in 2020. To this day has not flown, so I can't put that on my CV. So if I'm ever like in the city and people put a microphone in front of me, like on the chevron down there, like this, not gonna say like rocket scientist yet, but maybe like in the future, if it flies and doesn't crash, I can say like I have like a very small part to do with like I mean, there's not many rockets in Europe, but that's
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. So at what point did you start finding Bitcoin?
really, really early, embarrassingly early, because I was at a technical university and I had a lot of really nerdy friends. If you're a nerd, there were like, so at the university there was like no women, like at all. So you had all the time to focus on studying. And I distinctively remember very early on, like back then, when you could download Bitcoin, not Bitcoin Core, but like regular Bitcoin was it called, and you push a button that said generate Bitcoin, and then you could get free Bitcoin. And I didn't do that, but a friend of mine did that. And I remember when I went to his place, and we were intended to go on to, like, he was an electrical engineer, and there was like a party afterwards at his faculty, and I went to his place, and his place was a mess. And he was telling me, Chris, that I've made 2 amazing discoveries. And he told me about the first one. The first one was that if you use a frisbee and you turn it upside down and you line it with tinfoil and you eat your food from there, you can just throw away the tinfoil. You don't have to do dishes. Oh, okay, great. Can we go now? And the second one was, have you heard about Bitcoin? I was like, nope. And he talked about it. I didn't get it. Like none of us did. And then we went, and a couple of months later, he gave me, on a sheet of paper, he gave me Bitcoin. And as soon as it hit like 50 cents, like gave it all, put it all, like I bought a graphics card and stuff like this from him. And it's like, he got it very early on. Funny enough, I don't know where he is now. I really hope he's like, he kept all his Bitcoins and he's chilling in the Maldives. But yeah, so it took me until like 2012, 2013, when I saw, wow, the price of that thing that I got for free and that I used to buy like an overpriced graphics card, which I still own to this day. So I can tell you that that graphics card is like the most expensive graphics card like in the vicinity here. Like,
did you ever use it to mine Bitcoin, or was it just?
I should have used, like, I mean, I did some mining, but back then, like in 2013, they were already like the first ASICs were launched.
Right.
Like that was like too late for like GPU mining, and I still didn't understand it properly. I didn't know what money was then. Like I just tried. Like I worked at a gas station, and I like was to me, Bitcoin was this weird nerd stuff that nobody used, and it was really hard to spend. And I didn't do any drugs. There was like no market for me. And yeah, then all these other products came out, like Ethereum and like IOTA and Ryblocks and all this. I have a long history of doing shitcoins, as many of us probably have. And yeah, it took until like 2017, 2018, where I then decided, yeah, this is something more serious. And then I read a few books, and yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a really bad coder, so I can't really contribute to the Bitcoin system. And in 2021, my business partner and I, we decided, like, what can we do to help this project? And we are material scientists. We can make the best steel wallet. And that's my small, tiny, infinitesimal contribution to Bitcoin. Because, yeah, not writing code.
When did you realize, at what point did you realize that you were unemployable, as you called yourself earlier?
So I puts it very hard, but like I work very hard, very passionate on stuff that interests me. I, for the life of me, can't bring myself to work on stuff that does not interest me, and I'd rather like earn less money and do what I love than earn a lot of money. Like I have a lot of people that studied with me that went on to have fantastic careers, and I don't envy them a bit, because I can get up in the morning with a purpose. I still work like 7 days a week. Like I have many different projects, but it doesn't feel like it. I have so much energy when I do stuff that interests me, but I can't have like a proper like an authority person that tells me, no, you cannot do this now, you have to do this. And yeah, that's quite some time now ago where I realized that, and ever since then I have like several like smaller businesses that help. And Bitcoin helped a lot in,
that was my
realizing
next question.
that
That was my next question, because Bitcoin changes how you think. It changes all of us. It changes our mindsets. It changes the way we look at life. It changes the way we conduct ourselves, how we value time more. So was holding Bitcoin a big part of that mind shift?
Now that you said it, I think so. Like I don't think I've ever put those two things together, and it's right in front of my eyes actually. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is the first time in human history that we actually have the ability to save something, because we know for certain, like, and we know Jamie Dimon doesn't know, but we know that there's not gonna be more than 21 million. So we know if we put our like labor into something and get paid in Bitcoin, or get use that money to save that purchase power in Bitcoin, that we will have more in the future. And that is something like that is so mind-bogglingly, like it's such a simple concept, but like it took humanity and science so long to have all those puzzle pieces ready so that it actually works. And yeah, I mean, with every other store of value, there's like some sort of downside. And I've had many rabbit holes that I've gone into and then came out and found like conflicting stuff about it. But with Bitcoin, it's like the only thing that I still have not had anybody bring up a valid counterpoint to. And yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, Bitcoin is the reason why I can do what I want to do. And if everybody had Bitcoin, I think a lot of people would be happier, and we would be so much more productive, I think.
For sure. And when you were going through the books and the podcasts, going through like your deep learning, all of those dots start aligning. It's an amazing feeling, that those epiphanies where you wake up at 3 a.m. with the laser eyes on, you're like, oh, I get it. Right, that makes sense. What were the favorite epiphany moments of yours, or some of the resources that you were using that just suddenly started clicking for you?
So I very early was exposed to like the Andreas Antonopoulos like talks. Like I watched him like religiously on YouTube, and to this day those things hold up. You like, just to think like 2010, 2011, like having formulated those thoughts and like giving you all of the answers, and you just like dismiss it, and then like with the power of retrospective, now you look at them like 10, 12 years later, and it still holds true. It's like so amazing. Like, I mean, Kalle Rosenbaum's book Grokking Bitcoin and like Mastering Bitcoin by Antonopoulos, and like all these things, they are really, from a technical perspective, interesting to me. And then there's all these philosophical things like the praxeology stuff that Knut talks about, and of course like the Bitcoin standard. Like I don't subscribe to like some certain points in the Bitcoin standard, but it's still like a phenomenal book. Like there's so many concepts that like when you put them in words, like make a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, but the best thing that you can do is just meet other Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
Like self-study is nice, but you have to go out and meet people.
And that was obviously very difficult for a lot of plebs between, class of 2020, 2021, all locked down. And that's the thing, right? Because a lot of people found Bitcoin during that time because they had time. They were locked down. They could read the books. They could listen to the podcast or the audio books, whatever they were doing, whatever content they were taking. But then there was no way to get in front of another Bitcoiner. Zoom calls, yes, they were great. And I was hosting a few of those, and big shout out to the 21ism crew. We had about a weekly or bi-monthly call going on where we were just like, what the hell is going on here? And actually a big part of my lockdown experience was I signed up to safeithin.com course late 2019, and there was only a handful of us there, but it was twice a week, a call with Safe, and he would talk through a chapter of the Bitcoin standard, and then it would be a discussion that would be on a Monday, then a discussion on the Thursday. And that soon just delved into like almost therapy. It was like people from around the world, like, oh my God, have you seen what they're talking about now? Like, this is complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah, it was a very crazy time, and a lot of people, luckily, realized that governments, as Millet recently put it, they are not the solution; they are the problem itself. I distinctly remember, like, I was not allowed to go out play golf during the lockdown because, I mean, you're outside in the vastest of areas. You were not allowed to touch the pin. Like, you were not allowed to touch the pin. And then you think, oh, these people, they have the pension, they control the pension, they control the money, they control policies, they might send you into a war, and all those things like lead me to believe that is a very good thing that you have, or like the separation of state and money, that you have something that's global, truly global. Like I love it when I pay an invoice to a guy in Australia via Lightning instantly. It's like digital cash, and it just works. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, last question I have about like your past career and Bitcoin is, and you touched on it already when you were doing the testing there. Can you see now through a Bitcoin lens when you look back at what you were doing, all of the fiat fuckery that was driving malinvestment, poor decision making, cutting corners, a lot more clearer than when you were just like a young man, like without the
Yeah,
knowledge of money?
yeah. I mean, so I have a large workshop here. Like I have loads of tools, and I have inherited tools from my grandfather. He was with the railway in Germany, and he had like after that was sort of privatized, a lot of those tools went missing. And they're now in my possession, and those tools are a different quality than some of the tools that you can buy now. You can still buy quality tools, but so like there's this concept like a shitty engineer can build a bridge that is like doesn't crumble. Like he will over engineer it, he will add too much material, and it's the skill set of a really good engineer to build a bridge that barely like lasts, that is like only using as much resources as is necessary for the task at hand. And then there's like this concept where you have like a cordless drill, like you have like a model from Hilti in Liechtenstein that has like a magnesium casting casing, and you know this tool will run like 30 years. You maybe have to replace the brushes. And then there's like Bosch in the middle that will last you like 5-6 years if you use it extensively. And then at the end of the spectrum, there's like a tool like you buy at IKEA. You know this won't last to build up a billy furniture, but in the fiat mindset, it makes sense to build something like this because people will only use it once, and it doesn't like those resources. Like you have to just make your money by churning out as much as possible. And if you look at this, it's like we're trying to be sustainable, we're trying to save the planet, we try to live with the resource that we have, and we do this, and that is like the antithesis of what we try to what we need to do. Like you can just make something, you build something to last where it makes sense that you repair it as well. There's like I have a washing machine that's like I bought for like 500 euros, and then the drum suddenly made a noise, and there was clearly like a problem with the weight distribution there. And I checked it out, and I was not capable of repairing it myself. And then I asked like a repair shop, and they said, "Oh, at this price point, it doesn't make any sense to repair it because cost of labor, material. We just get a new one." And then I looked at like really expensive like Miele brands, something like this, and I said, "Yeah, okay, I mean this makes sense to repair this. This is better build quality." And if we like think a couple years ahead, a couple generations ahead, if you're living like on a Bitcoin standard, nobody would invest their money or part with their hard-earned Satoshi to buy something they know won't last. And that is something that fills me with like hope that people make better purchase decisions. People will build better quality, and we won't, just leave loads of trash around. Like it's
Yep. It's crazy to me because what's preached at us is it's fine to preach something, but it's not practiced. In fact, the complete
exactly, yeah.
opposite.
Use less energy. Like that's insane. Like just we have to. In Germany recently, like one of the green politicians, she said something like we have to decrease in size. Like we have to like what are you talking about? Like it's everybody's right to use as much resources as he wishes to if he can afford those. And the incentive structure is like with fiat money is like not properly aligned. With like a really sound hard money, people would make sound decisions, and then we would solve these problems very
I,
easily.
I'll give you an example, an anecdotal story of of this town that we're in right now. It's a beautiful old seaside town, lots of character. It's great, and lots of cottages and things by the sea. Like the cobbled streets and whatever else, the rickety buildings. And in the UK and globally, I'm sure everybody's being preached that use less energy, economize your use of energy. This is how you can do your heating better, and blah blah blah. And in France, they're even going so far as outlawing fuel boiling systems to try and move everybody off that, because it's, in air quotes, bad for the environment, right?
We do that in
So,
Germany as well.
right, brilliant. So a perfectly good boiler that is going to last another 50 years. Weissmann are a very good, heating company.
Yes.
That's going to keep you and your family warm for the next 50 years, no problem. No, we can't have that. That's now going to be ripped out of your basement. That's going to be then taken to some smelting plant and recycled and re-engineered into something else, because we need you to put in a different, like, electric heat pump or something.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah. I mean,
It's nonsense. There's so many things wrong. But this particular example, so here we are, we're in these houses, and the preaching here is do better to economize with your heating, right? But you're not allowed to change the windows, which are single glazing, because we want to keep the look and the feel of the town as it is. But then they go and fucking build a Fiat flats complex that looks absolutely dreadful. So you're not allowed to change your windows to keep yourself and your family, one, safer because it's harder to break into, two, warmer, three, you're going to economize and spend less money, four, you're going to less damage to the environment because you're not emitting so many fumes. But we're going to go and build this awful looking shit box at the end of the street. Like, so what is happening is absolutely incredible to me, that people can't see it, that they're being gaslit on every part of their existence.
yeah, I mean, it's almost as if subsidies and price caps don't work. Like as soon as there's like an intrusion by the state and trying to steer something out of the good, I'm sure they are good people and they have the best intentions. But like what you said, like with those windows, it doesn't make any sense. Like, or like this house I'm in right now, I know, like I have oil heating. This is only legal until 2033.
Right.
As soon as like if this breaks in 2032, I would have to get a heat pump. And in order for the heat pump that has less pretty thermal units than like the boiler I have now, I would have to clad the entire house and make like so many changes and insulate the roof and all these things. And whereas just use like a very cost efficient way to heat it the way it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like most people are capable enough of making their own decisions. But yeah,
Absolutely.
no,
And most
no
people,
window for you.
most people think of think of the revenue it would drive if they lifted that restriction on the windows, just the windows. What's that going to do? It's going to incentivize a company to make windows that look exactly the same as the ones that you're going to replace, but are a lot safer and a lot thicker. And like you would create employment.
Yeah.
Shit tons of it, because this is just one seaside town in the UK. We're talking about all of the UK is facing this problem, where you're not allowed to touch the windows on the house. It's absolute insanity.
I don't know who told the story, but there was a similar story where a guy had like a historic building and he wanted to add another window because he was like didn't have enough light in his windows. And instead of going to the municipality, local government, and asking whether he can add a window, he just added a window and then went there and said, "Can I remove this window?" And said, "No, you can't. It's protected. You have to. The face of the building cannot change." And then he had his window, like he had it on paper that this window needs to stay there.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
story. That's a great story. And another story that Dominic Frisby told on my podcast when I had him on, talking about daylight robbery. The saying daylight robbery is linked to taxation of windows back in Victorian times, I think. You'd have to check that out. People, please fact check me. But during that time, the the powers that be, they come up with this idea that the more windows you had, the richer you were, clearly because the bigger house that you had. So therefore, a window tax was levied, i.e., a daylight tax, which is where the saying "daylight robbery" comes from. And that spurred everybody to start bricking up the windows. So when you do walk around the UK, you see it in France as well in some old buildings. Sometimes you see that building where you see where a window would have been, but it's bricked in. And I remember as a kid always thinking, that's really weird. And it wasn't until Dom explained to me that it was a tax. And of course, the knock-on effects of that were the poorest people would brick their windows up because they didn't have the extra cash to pay this ridiculous tax. And they would literally live in darkness. And then they were burning like reeds for light inside, and the fumes and the soot from the reeds made people sick, and they died. So there you go. It's almost as if every time the government come up with some kind of harebrained scheme for the greater good, everybody else suffers. I mean, we could do child labor laws. We could do minimum wage. This kind. It's endless.
Yeah, the free market can solve many things, and yeah, but there's this like how bullish are you? What is your outlook? When will we reach a hyper Bitcoinization, in your opinion?
You've caught me at a bad time because because I've been digging into the ordinals and the inscriptions and the spam on the blockchain, and I did a spaces with at Grass-Fed Bitcoin last night, the Bitcoin mechanic.
Yeah.
And he's got a very kind of deep look at this as well with his work. He used to work at Start9, and he's moved now across to Ocean, and the mining pool there that has been set up by Luke Dash, and the troubles that he was bringing up about how centralized Bitcoin mining truly is, and how we've all been gaslit into believing that it's decentralized. And he was explaining block header templates to me and everybody else that was listening, and that was really interesting. And I was explaining to him what I'd seen with regards to the spam on the blockchain. Where was it coming from? How was it being funded? Is this an attack? Excuse me. If it is an attack, where's it coming from? And obviously we have the Playboy Center useful idiots in Udi and Eric dancing around on stage in wizard outfits and whatever else. That's all just a distraction. When you look at who and where the funding for Taproot Wizards is coming from, it's dark. It's pretty dark. It leads all the way back to this company called Starkware, which is an $8 billion, in air quotes, tech unicorn startup in Israel that's backed by the founder of Neo. He was the first seed investor, and he is a direct advisor to the Chinese government on blockchain. And and I'm like, what do these people even do? And so they provide layer 2 solutions, as they call it. So it looks to me as though there's a huge amount of spam going on the blockchain, create a problem, cause division, then offer a solution. And on the cap table of this company is the who's who of Bitcoining, shitcoining, small blocker, big blocker, salty haired people that still are very, very well funded. And of course, this link to Israel and China. So how bullish am I on hyper Bitcoinization? I have to remain very bullish on plebs. And I think over the next 24 months, we're going to have a huge moment in Bitcoin, very heated debates about what is spam. It's already happening, these debates. What is spam? What is censorship? What does that truly mean? Let's get to the praxeological root of these terms. Let's look at the actual definition of these terms, and let's actually decide on whether or not people with integrity, like yourself, who are running 2 or 3 nodes, do you want that shit on your node? Do you want it to be stored on your node? And if this is just the beginning, what else could they come up with that's going to be, put on your node? And that could be another attack vector as well. So I'm bullish on the plebs to coming up with a solution and carrying forward the conversation and making Bitcoin, the network, safer, better, easier to use, and getting it back to a monetary um, protocol, monetary network. Like you said, paying someone in Australia, amazing. That feels amazing because you can do it, it's instant. But two, it feels amazing because you are showing your true appreciation in the best money that human beings have ever discovered as a medium of exchange to express the value that that person has offered and to you. Like that's a deep it goes, right? We're redesigning civilization, we're redesigning social norms, and this is going to be uplifting for humanity all around the world. We've got to get back to that, but I really hope. I mean, we all want it to happen quickly, but Bitcoin's going to do what it's going to do, and we're going to have these speed bumps. I just don't have any real prediction there. I don't know. How have you been thinking about all of this?
Yeah, TikTok next block. So like I think so I will have to look further into what you just brought to my attention with like Starkware and stuff like that. I was not aware of that. I knew a lot of Satoshi Vision guys really like ordinals and stuff like that, but I always go with like Occam's razor, like don't attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity. And like there are moonbows, people want to make money. I think JPEGs are idiotic. We can agree on that. But if you exchange one Satoshi for more Satoshis, like that is not a sustainable market. Like because you can't make more. You can buy one of Satoshi with like fiat money, and then you can have these NFT scams like going forever. But if you have to pay them in Satoshi, like whether it's stamps or ordinals or whatever, like that is something that will eventually die. I absolutely believe that. Like there is no value there. People will, like 99% will get rugged. 1% that create these projects will become richer. To me, the strength of Bitcoin is that we have this fee market, and you can't, like with spam, like email spam, there is very little cost. Like the origins of Bitcoin in the reusable proof of work, like what Adam Beck came up with Hashcash, like was to prevent spam, that there has to be like a work being done so that you can send this email. And now we have this fee that you have to pay, and the fees, it's sad to see that now people from like the global south are getting priced out because you have to pay like $20 for like a transaction. It's not economical. But I see all this development going on with like U3XO, where you can have like the UTXO set much more slimmer, even though like Bitcoin stamps at like 50,000 UTXOs per day now and loads the set idiotically. There's so much development going on now to making this smaller. And then like with blockchain pruning, we can remove basically like the JPEGs and we have like smaller nodes. There's always like human ingenuity and people who just build. And I think the entire, ordinals debate is much bigger on Twitter than it actually is, I think. Like Twitter as not being a real place, I think like this right now, it's like everybody is annoyed at Udi and Eric, but I think it's a phase. This will pass too. Bitcoin will come out stronger. There will be like some proper scaling solution. I don't know, maybe Covenant, something like this, where we have the ability to not only scale payments, but also scale ownership of Bitcoin. And I'm very bullish on the Galaxy brains to figure that for me out, because
That's
it
what
won't
I
be
need.
yeah.
That's where it's hard for a lot of us, right? Because we are putting our trust into the Galaxy brains, and I back plebs, like I said, and I believe in the plebs. But just to like back up and simplify things for people that might be wondering what we're talking about. So at the moment, and I'm just looking at one of the last blocks here, one of the transactions in here, somebody sent 1,000 sats in a transaction, but paid 5,825 sats to make that transaction. So on the face of it, yes, it looks completely unsustainable, and a lot of the blocks are just filled up with this nonsense. Now, the biggest worry for me, so people are, how deep are the pockets behind this? This is the question, because I think it's got to the point now where I can't see how it's just degens on the blockchain swapping JPEGs and pics, and just as at time of recording, it'll be different come time of release, but at time of recording, I think just yesterday the Taproot Wizards like released 3,000 pictures of cats in JPEGs that they were selling for 0.1 Bitcoin per picture. I'm like, who's buying this stuff? Like, it's not the plebs. Is it?
Yeah, people
Is it
will
all
get
the?
wrecked. Yes.
Is it all the degens coming from shitcoin blockchains coming over? I mean, it's how many can there truly be?
A fool and their money are easily parted. I still like. I mean, I was surprised at the sheer number, but I think they overplayed their hand, and soon they will see that it's not a sustainable market. The floor value of those whatever they're called ordinals inscriptions. They won't hold zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. Like, what is that?
Mhm.
4,500 euros. Like, that is insane for a JPEG. Like, I mean, if you have that kind of money, donate it to a dev. Like, I talked to Eric about like this up cat thing that supposedly is getting funding through this, and just donate the money directly to people working on Bitcoin code, because they could make so much more money if they worked for Cardano, Ethereum, for all these shit coins, but they choose to work on the best protocol, on sound money, and they are grossly underfunded most of the time.
So Eric
That's my
being Eric
yeah.
being Eric Wall.
Yes, I
Okay.
talked to him on Twitter. Like, I asked him, like,
Right.
because he like gave people shit about like having people start out with a custodial Lightning wallet instead of using like proper Lightning's broken stuff. Like, yeah, then fix it. Instead of like doing JPEGs, fix it. Contribute
Mhm.
to like, and he tried to weasel out and say like the Quantum Cats. Like, money will be going to like development of OpCat whatever products, but you can do this without having like this. Like, if I go on Giza Fund, I donated to a couple projects. You
Yep.
get like a participation badge. I could put this as my profile picture as well. Like, if I need,
Right.
like, give me more of that social signal. I gave you 1,000,000 sats. I need some, I don't know, adulation or something. Like, I don't know.
Well, I followed a bit of the money into this, and unfortunately, it doesn't look great for Eric. And I'm just stating facts here that there's if anybody can go to the Crypto Times and / Starknet, and there's a report here, October 31st, 2023, by Jalpa Bavsa, I think. And the title reads Starknet, which is a subsidiary of Starkware, who we were talking about earlier. Starknet rewards 50 million STRK tokens to early contributors. Now, if you go to Eric Wall's LinkedIn, you can see he is a board member at Starknet. So I am sure he has been absolutely rained upon with airdropped tokens, and it is in his best interest to keep this ordinals and inscriptions lark, spam, LARP on the Bitcoin blockchain, because he's incentivized by shitcoins and shitcoiners to do it. And he's a dangerous troll. And it's very all you have to do is follow the money, follow the pre-mine, and you will find the truth that lays behind. So yeah, it's not cool. And I hope
Yeah. But
not that many
code is
people.
law, and right now, without filters or like changes to consensus, it's impossible to like put a bar in front of that. So, what is your suggestion?
And it comes back to what we were saying earlier. I can't code. I am not. I have absolutely no skills there at all, which leaves me dependent on the skill set of the plebs and of the devs, which is a weird place to be. But 90% of Bitcoiners are probably in that place.
Yeah,
And
I
so
recently had this meme where like the scene from iRobot where Will Smith talks to the android and says, humans can write symphonies and paint pictures. Machines can't do that. Ironically, nowadays, I mean, but back in 2000, when was it, 2004, and the Android just responds with "Can you?" And it's similar to like Bitcoin. Oh, it's open source. It's trustless. Everybody can check the code. Can you? I can't.
Nope.
It's trust for us. For us, it's trust. Like
Yeah, it truly is. So my solution is just to do what I can do to help carry on with the conversation. And since starting the podcast in 2020, I've built a small platform compared to so many other people out there, but it's a platform that I'm willing to use to have the discussion on, to raise the alarm, and have like open chats with people like you and any other pleb that's got this on their mind and like, I thought this was supposed to be for monetary transactions, and we were going to have a global economy, and we weren't going to price out the people that we've been saying forever. Like, this is inclusive. This includes everybody. Well, it doesn't anymore. Like you said, like we're pricing out the whole global south.
Pricing out people, and a lot of people didn't do UTXO management. And I mean, right now the fees have gone down a little bit, but it's always like, yeah. So that's what I'm doing. Like I try to not necessarily raise the alarm, but as everybody who listens to me will hear that JPEGs are not a store of value. Don't lose your money. Let them, Starkware, whatever, burn their money, fund the miners. I mean, TerraHash is running 210 S19s. Like, give those sats to like people that secure the network. I think sooner or later they will run out of VC money, and Bitcoin will come out stronger. And I'm super bullish on like that Bitcoin will survive, and that Bitcoin is money, and that we will come up with all these fantastic ways of doing like 1 million transactions per second, and everybody gets a UTXO, may it be virtual or whatever, but that the ownership of money for everybody on this planet is possible. And yeah, fund devs.
Yes.
That's what I I
And
mean, it's still like we donate money to devs, and
we need more devs.
Maybe we need to learn code.
maybe we do, but we certainly do need more devs. That's one thing I think as well. Having such a small core team, but of course the people with that skill set are being attracted to the other blockchains and the other projects that are paying them shit tons of money to. It's so still such a fiat land out there.
Yeah, it's so sad. Like Rindale, the guy that does the CTO of the Taproot visits, like he's a brilliant guy. Like not only is he very capable as a coder, but listening to like the various podcasts he's on, like he's very eloquent and can explain into detail like what's going on. And I love listening to him. And then I see him like, wow, this is the cow that we have to slaughter to end this bear market. Like apparently, like slay your heroes. It's like
all heroes must be slayed, plebs. That's for sure.
Yes,
that is for sure.
Heroes.
Yeah. All right, mate. I've got to ask you the final question. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give that to and why?
One last. I'm not really a proponent of the orange pill in this sense. Like orange pill to me feels like forcing something on somebody. Like Knut says, like if you don't take the orange pill later, you have to take the suppository. But I always say like, yeah, this is the orange gate or something. Like I try to show as many people as possible, like the arc that is Bitcoin. Here you can go the gangway and you can be on there, or you can stay here. Entirely optional, but I try to figure out what problem people have that Bitcoin solves. Because if you come up with like, this is the perfect solution for a problem that they don't have, then they're not interested. And I travel a lot. I have like a big car, and I always do ride sharing. And it's not in the first 30 minutes, but like the conversation sooner or later goes into Bitcoin, and they can't leave, which is nice. Like they can't roll out of the car. And I always like start out and learn more about them, and then usually the orange pill automatically happens. And I mean, who needs an orange pill? Like somebody who can change more. Like, I don't know, some really influential, like the next president of the United States needs to be a proper Bitcoiner and not just like an opportunist who tries to get the votes of Bitcoiners who generally don't participate in this anyway. But yeah, I mean, everybody around me is sick and tired of listening to me talk about Bitcoin. So in my vicinity, there's nobody left.
You're doing your job.
Yeah.
You're
So
doing your job. Well, mate, what's the best way for people to get their hands on a Seedor set and take their self custody to the next level and stamp those words into steel?
So yeah, if you're in the UK, robotechie.com has it. If you're in Canada, QuickBit Crypto has them in Regina. Those are really nice Bitcoiners there. In the United States, Bitcoin Magazine carries our product. We are on Amazon, or you can go directly on seedor.io, and then you can also get like a custom engraving on there. Like we engrave anything on those capsules if you want to have a nice gift. Like they come also individual. And if you have any suggestion, write an email, chris@seedor.io. I read them all. And because again, people around me don't want to talk about Bitcoin anymore. And always happy to talk about Bitcoin or Bitcoin related stuff with other people.
Will you be going to any conferences at all and selling the hardware at a booth, or any plans like that?
So the next conference I think we both are going to will be in Madeira.
Yes.
And end of February. But I will just be there as a pleb and look around. Maybe our product will be sold there. I'm not sure yet, but I think so. And I will go to United States again. I will go to, there's one in Italy and one in France. Like I'll try to go to as many meetups and many smaller conferences as well. And you can follow us on Twitter. I make cringe memes if you're into that. They're not the highest quality, but they are in quantity. Go on the link below if you're on YouTube and follow the link to Seedor with code BITTEN. You get 5% off of the entire basket. And then in turn, you also support the work that Daniel is doing and help this channel grow.
Thanks for coming on, brother. Great to do this, and all the best.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Daniel.